My guest today, Jodi Brandon, is a book publishing strategist and coach for business owners and leaders, and the founder of Jodi Brandon Editorial. Jodi has used her 20 plus years experience in book publishing to help over 850 business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs to write, publish, and market a book to grow their business. She's the author of Write.Publish.Market, second edition. The third edition is coming in fall 2025, and she is the host of the Write.Publish.Market podcast. Welcome, Jodi Brandon. Hello, Jodi. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Isabel. I'm happy to be here.
Jodi, you and I we've met in person, haven't we, at the
We
Author
have.
Nation conference last year, and we know each other online. But do you want to introduce us to you and how you work with authors?
Sure. I'm Jodi Brandon, and I am a book writing strategist, really, for business owners, especially writing a nonfiction book that they want to use as a marketing tool in their business. My background is in copy editing, and as I started working with self-published authors, I realized they needed a lot of education. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the traditional publishing world. And so I really liked that education piece. And then I started getting into coaching and strategy, and that's how I spend my days now.
So can you talk us through, how did you get here? Have you always worked with authors, or how has this evolved?
So I was one of those strange kids that just knew what they wanted to do with their life. I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I used to say, we have old family video of me saying, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Jodi? And I would say, I want to work with words and I want to work with books. So I, went to college and I studied professional writing and business. And then I moved to New York City, like, like a girl from the suburbs of Pennsylvania does at age 22 when she doesn't know any better. And I got a job in traditional publishing, and then I realized there's no money in traditional publishing on the editorial side. So I started freelancing, and then I started, working my way up. And then met someone, got married. My husband and I moved away from New York City, and then I realized there's no little publishing outside of New York City. So I started really leaning into freelance editing work, and then self-publishing authors. Self-publishing was like kind of coming to be and sort of starting to get its footings as not being like a vanity plan B option for a lot of people. And I sort of built my business up that way. So that business degree that my parents insisted on has come in handy. So turns out.
Excellent. So you mentioned, are you working entirely with business authors, or have we got a mixture going on?
I do, unless it's, someone I know that's also working on a nonfiction book, I will help them out sort of on the side. But my business for Jodi Brandon Editorial, we work strictly with business owners. Fiction editing and strategy, and nonfiction editing and strategy, and children's writing and strategy are all so different. They're almost like three independent like niches within the book publishing industry.
Right.
So working with business owners is that's my sweet spot. Because I mean, I think as a business owner myself, because I sort of know some of the, and as an author myself, so I know some of the challenges, and I know the background of the publishing industry, the language of the publishing industry, so I can sort of help people navigate their way through it easy.
So you're a writer yourself as well. Have you published your own books as well?
I have a career guide for book editing that I did years ago. I did one of those. I don't know if they have them over in the UK, Isabel. It's called, the series is called Images of America, and it's like this brown and white sepia tone. They all look the same, and they're like photo histories of towns across the US. And maybe beyond, I don't know. But I did one of those on the town that I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania, as sort of like I split the royalties with the historical society there. Sort of started as a fundraiser, and then I just really loved it. And then I also have Write.Publish.Market, my signature book, which I'm currently revising for a third edition, which is super exciting. So yeah,
that's exciting. So how much have you found that self-publishing has evolved then since you've concentrated in that area?
Oh my gosh, in so many ways. It's so nice to see it talked about as a legitimate path to book publication these days. And for so long it wasn't, and so many people confused vanity publishing and self-publishing. And so that really, I think, slowed down the growth of the industry. But especially for the people I work for, business owners, it's their plan A usually. It's not, oh, I couldn't get a traditional book publishing deal, so I'm
Right.
going to self-publish.
Mhm.
This is the best way for me to keep control over the creative process, keep more
Mhm.
of the money
Mhm.
on the back end, all of those things. So I really feel like it's really come into its own. And now we've got hybrid publishing coming in, and that's like the new kid on the block. So it's a fun time to be in the industry, I think.
Yeah. And without us getting too bogged into the kind of hybrid and self-publishing debate, what do you see that hybrid brings to the table that wasn't there before?
I think it's sort of like that perfect mix, right? It takes away, you still keep all of the creative control,
Mhm.
and you keep more of your profits and royalties and all of that, but it takes away some of the project management role if you
Mhm.
don't want to, I mean, DIY doesn't mean you're bootstrapping and doing every single thing, but maybe you aren't interested in figuring out, where do I need to look for service providers for my book team? They'll
Mm.
handle that. They will, it's like a traditional publisher in that sense, that they deal with a lot of the production stuff, copy editor, typesetting, cover design, with you still having more choice and control. So I think it's a great option for people who want to maintain that control, but maybe hand over some of the day to day in the
Yes.
weeds stuff.
Yeah, because it's a daunting prospect. It can be, can't it? For especially for
Absolutely.
first time authors.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to say, oh, I have a bound book, a finished bound book. That's great. But to get from that, that Google Doc or that Word doc on your laptop to there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yes. Yeah. I think often authors feel like, there is a kind of ever growing shopping list, isn't it, of things of
Yep.
elements that they need to
Yep.
bring in. When it comes to that all important question then of the marketing of the book, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see authors dealing with then when it comes to actually bringing the book to market?
I think there's three, two of which maybe for everybody, and one more specific to business owners. So one is waiting too long to start.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
and I know that's something you speak about a lot. It is,
Yeah.
do not wait when the book is finished, too late. You got to start talking about it before that.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is getting caught up in the vanity metrics, I think is a mistake that a lot of authors make. I do see business owners make this mistake where,
Mm.
you start chasing that bestseller status. And that sort of ties into the third piece that I talk about, specifically with business owners, is sort of making sure you're clear on what your goals are for your book, because you're not business owners are not trying to be professional authors. They're not trying to make a living by writing books. So it's
Right.
a little bit different from other, more quote unquote regular authors, right?
Yes.
But if you are clear on the goals for your book and how it's going to fit into your business, how you're going to use it in your business,
Mm.
then you can, just like stay the course. Don't worry about getting caught up in those vanity metrics. It's exciting, right? Those like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I sold 12,000 books on launch day, or oh my gosh, I'm an Amazon bestseller, or I'm a New York Times bestseller. Those things are absolutely exciting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But are they getting you closer to your goals for your book? And usually the answer is no. It's just more of like a fun something I could talk about.
Yeah.
So stay the course, I think, is, start early and stay the course are the
Yeah.
two biggest pieces of
Yeah,
advice.
I think that's great advice. What do you think are the biggest goals then for most business owners coming into self-publishing? What do you think are the key goals really to focus on?
I think what makes it tricky is that they're intangible a lot of the time,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
It's credibility, it's authority, it's visibility, it's thought leadership. So, and it's hard to put a metric on those. So the ROI for a business owner a lot of times comes, you know, through those intangibles, and then on the back end what they bring. So think about not, oh, I'm getting many hundreds or thousands of dollars in book royalties, but now I can charge a higher price for my group program. Now I can charge a higher price for a speaking engagement.
Yeah.
Now I can fill my pipeline with potential customers, and you can use that book as a top of funnel where you're getting them in with a low price. A paperback's $10,
Yes.
right? So you can get them in that way, and then use sales multipliers and upsells and downsells and all of these other options. But yeah, I mean, I tell my clients every single day, they're so sick of hearing it, but the money is not in the book directly, usually for business owners.
Right. Yes. I think that's an incredibly important point to make, isn't it? The book is an accompaniment, isn't it, to the
Yes.
business essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to figure out how it fits in. I mean, it's not enough to just want to write a book. Yes.
Right.
But that's where I think those vanity metrics come in, right? Like,
Mm,
so it's
mm,
more exciting when the book does, does gangbusters on launch day or launch week. You've worked so hard to get to that point. So when your focus is not just on launch week, but far beyond,
mm.
it's kind of like, ooh, now what? But with that like excitement of launch time, it's
Yes.
easy to get caught up in that and
Yes.
forget about where you're going.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that authors find difficult is, once that excitement of launch period is over,
Right.
that's not the end of the road.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
no, that sure isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I got a message that said something like, I thought writing the book was the hard part, I mean, I could have retired 10 years ago. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's hard to maintain that
Yes.
long-term momentum. So if you don't have a plan going in, yeah, you're going to end up frustrated and burnt out, and then nobody's going to want to market. You're not going to talk about the book, you're not going to market the book, and then you're going to be even more disappointed 6 months from now that the book didn't do
Mm,
anything.
right. And I think it's also important, isn't it, for us to impress on business owners writing books that, that we talk about evergreen content, don't we, in
Yeah.
business? So, where does the book sit when we're talking about, launching versus evergreen, essentially?
Right. Well, and if you're a business owner, that book should be tied into whatever your core message is anyway. So it
Mm,
should be, I mean, I'm guilty of this too as an author, but it's so easy to say, I talk about that in my book. Like, as we're talking about something, I could have said that 4 times already
yeah.
as I'm
Yeah.
answering your questions, and I haven't
Yeah.
said it once. So it has to be a conscious effort though, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, yeah, you don't talk about the book as much, especially because the book is probably, again, my book is $9.99, but my signature package is thousands of dollars. So of
Mm,
course it feels like we're going to talk about that more. But those little times talking about the book and showing the book, I have lots of clients that, just have the book in their background on their Zoom background or whatever. It's just planting those little seeds, those little breadcrumbs to lead people into more of your content.
mm. So, and what about the writing? Because I'm intrigued as, what does a business owner do when they think, well, I've never written a book, they don't see themselves as, because I think a lot of it is how do you see yourself as an author, isn't it? I think there's always a kind of a mindset piece
Mindset.
to do there,
Mhm.
isn't there?
Yeah. What I tell people is this is a short-term situation.
Mm,
We talk about seasons, like busy seasons, rest seasons, all of that in life and in business. And you're going to put on a professional writer hat for a season. Or you're going to hire a ghostwriter. That's
right.
that's fine too. But if you're going to do it yourself, which is what most people do it themselves, unless they're at a very high level, because they already have so much content to use. So I mean, and that sort of relaxes people right away. One of the exercises I take my one-on-one clients through is we look at their content library. We figure out the table of contents for their book. These are all the things I want to talk about. And then it's like, oh, I do have all of this material already that I can work with. So I'm not starting with like 0 word count, blinking cursor on a blank document. And that doesn't mean it's going to be a direct copy and paste, but it gives you a starting point, and that sort of helps with the mindset as well, because business owners like to be in charge. So I think that's a big piece of the mindset as well. It's not just that professional author piece. It's letting go of some of that control and admitting, oh, this is an area that I don't know anything about. I need help.
Mhm.
And we're not used to asking for help. Like, we're not good at asking for help a lot of times.
Yes.
So I think that can be really frustrating for business owners, especially. And then, they're not trying to write the great American novel. There's a transformation and a promise that they're making for their readers. And generally it's the same thing again that they're doing in their business. So that's helpful
Yes.
because they've already done a lot of that mindset work and that inner work to get like clarify their messaging and all of that. So it's really then just translating. I mean, I spent a lot of time just trying to convince people, yes, this is a book, it's a creative endeavor, but you have to think of it just like any other tool in your business. Just like if
Mm,
you're developing a course or a program or, a video series, whatever it is,
mm,
you have to think about the book that way as a product
yes.
as you're putting it together as much as a creative endeavor.
Right. And I think that's very interesting, isn't it? That the book as a product rather than, yeah.
Yeah.
rather
That's
than
that little switch. I can see the light bulb going off in their minds, and
right.
then it doesn't feel as daunting,
Yeah.
even though it still is. It's still a long, big undertaking, but that shift really makes a difference for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, and like you say, having that sense of it's what they already know and what
Yeah,
they are already an expert
yeah,
in.
yeah. You're just packaging it in a different way.
Yeah. I'd like to take a moment to let you know about my newly launched membership for authors, the Author Brand Community, or ABC. This is a supportive space where authors can come to get guidance, advice, get my eyes and ears on your author brand and your author business in a supportive group of like-minded authors who are all working on the same challenges at the same time. This group is where we will discuss everything to do with bringing your book to market, finding your readers, building your author brand, and giving your books the best chance of success. This is a membership group. You are free to cancel your membership at any time, and I'm looking forward to inviting you in and welcoming you into the community. For more information, go to the website www.buildyourauthorbrand.com. You'll find all of the information and details of what the membership entails, what you get as a member, and how to join. And of course, you can contact me, email me, or DM me through any of the social media platforms to find out more and have a chat. What kind of makes you most passionate about helping authors in this way then, and serving the community?
I think it's really one, there are still those people who think self-publishing is not good enough. And I think I love breaking away the gatekeeping in the traditional book publishing world. And like transparency. This is a valid option. Look at all of these books that have done well this way. Look at how all of these different business owners are using their books in such creative ways. That's one of my favorite things. On my podcast, we have some book journey episodes. So I have, guest experts like you come on and talk about your zone of genius. But then I also have people who have written a book that they're using in their business, and it's a set of questions for them. But my favorite question is, how are you using the book in your business? Because people come up with the most creative things, like read along book clubs, a lot of people are doing right now. Like brilliant. I never would have thought of that in a million years. And they're so successful. I worked with somebody a couple of years ago who wrote it was a hybrid personal development memoir about premature babies and time in the NICU for parents and stuff like that. And she educates women about this. But her book was used, she sent it out to all sorts of doctors' offices and things like that to get it into the right hands. And it ended up being used on a major television series in the United States who had a character that was going through something like that. And the producer reached out to my client, asked if they could have a copy of the book to use as research. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. So you never know what opportunities it can bring.
Absolutely. You're limited by only your imagination, right? So, and you see what all of these other people are doing, and then you think, maybe that won't work in my business, but what if I tweaked that idea and did this? I bet that might work for my audience, And I mean, marketing's a lot of experimentation, which is fun and frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah. I'm often saying there is no one size fits all with marketing, and same
yeah,
goes for business, business books
right.
as with any other book.
Absolutely.
Well,
And I know that's frustrating sometimes
mm,
for people, business
yes,
owners, especially like that control we talked
yes.
about. They just want, some people are just give me the playbook XYZ that I can run. I can give you that playbook, but that doesn't mean if you're not dialed in with what your goals are and your plans are for how this book fits in, XYZ might not be the right playbook for you. You might need JKL,
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But do you find that with business owners, because I think one stumbling block for authors generally is thinking about, we talk about the ideal reader, don't we? Who is going to read the book? Is that something that you are working on with business owners writing books in the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's not going to get you where you want to go if the right people aren't reading it.
Mm.
Even if you write the best book, even if you do, complete that transformation, getting them from point A to B, you fulfilled the promise you make them in the introduction or your subtitle or wherever you have it. If you are not talking to the right people, then it doesn't matter what you're saying. The message is not going to be received by who it needs to be received by. So I work a lot on primary audience. And then one of the things, this might, well, fiction, other authors use this too. The secondary audience is also something that I think is really overlooked and huge for business books. The number of people that say like, oh, I have someone to buy this gift for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever. And, I know they want to write a book. I want to buy your book for them. So it's getting your book. Who's in the middle there to get your book into the right hands if you're not reaching them directly. So yeah, talking to the right, I'm preaching to the choir here. I know, Isabel, this is, you talk about this a lot, far better than I do, but yeah, you have to know who that person is who you're
Yes.
trying to reach.
Yes, but I think that's a great point you make about the secondary audience, because I think some business owners come to this going, they know who their clients are, they know
Yeah.
who they are serving, but
Yep.
actually with a book, you're in a position to reach other people that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can do that organically, right?
Mm.
Without a huge ad spend.
Yes.
It's another way to get in front of other people without a huge
Mm.
ad spend.
Yeah. No, I think it's hugely important point. What are the things that make the most difference to the success of business authors? What are the kind of key things that people should take note of if someone's listening to this and thinking, oh, I'd quite like to write a book for my business?
Yeah.
What are the key?
Well, I think one, play the long game. It is a long game. It's not as simple as, putting together a webinar or a master class, right? Where you're sitting
Right.
down and putting together a slide deck. It is
Mhm.
a longer process. So
Mm.
you've got to be, if you think it through, you've got to be in a place where you have clarified your messaging. You do have maybe a signature offer, something like that. So if
Mm.
you're newer in business, a book might not be the best tool to serve your business. So
Right.
think about that. And that goes back to what we were talking about before. Where does the book fit in? But you've got to be prepared to play that long game. Don't get caught up in those vanity metrics like we've
Yeah.
talked about. And then I think really take it seriously like you do everything else in your business.
Mm.
Make a plan, figure out what's your budget, who you're going to need to hire, who would be nice to hire but you don't need to hire, which pieces can you DIY, which
Right.
pieces of the process, and then find trusted advice and follow that through. But I think so many people think like, what is that statistic? Like 80% of the population wants to write a book, something like that. I would bet that number's even higher for business
Yeah.
owners. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
think there's no way to know that, but I believe with every fiber of my being that for
Yes.
business owners, it's like 95%, 98%. But figure out if the time is right. Do you have the capacity for it right now? Do you have, systems around you in business
Mm.
and in life to
Mm.
actually make this happen? Or maybe it's not the right time. It's not the right time for everybody. It will happen when it's supposed to happen. I do firmly believe that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. But I think so. One of the takeaways is this is not something to treat lightly, just another thing to tick off your list, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's too much work to consider it that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Anybody who's done it knows it's really, it's a big undertaking. Just
Mm.
like any of these big, signature things in our businesses are, they're
Mm.
big undertaking. It's a lot of work. It's often a lot of money that you're investing up front without a
Mm.
traditional publishing deal. That's the beauty of the traditional publishing deal, right? That you're getting the money up front.
Right.
It's not an author subsidized model like
Mm.
self-publishing and hybrid publishing are.
Yes.
So you've got to make sure that you are in a position to do it. I talk about doing it the right way. Like, don't half what it, or the book is never going to do what you want it to do. And
Yeah.
success looks different to everybody. So
Yes.
that ties in with the vanity metrics and all of that, but figure out what success looks like for you.
Right.
Is it book sales? If it's book sales, your marketing plan is going to look a lot different than if it's, using it as the top of funnel to fill a group program 4 times a year.
Mm.
Those are going to be two vastly different marketing plans. And you're going to talk about the book in very different ways, depending on what those goals are. So figure out what success it would look like for you, and then, reverse engineer your plan accordingly.
Yes. So it's approaching it with great intention, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true for everything we do in business, right? This is just a different thing we're doing in business that's
Mhm.
unfamiliar
Mm,
and seems, because of all the gatekeeping, and book
mhm.
publishing has its own language and all of that, it feels like it's, out there. I can't reach it without being part of this traditional publishing world.
Right.
And
Mm,
I and many other people in the industry are saying, no, that's not the only way. There's lots and lots of different ways. Figure out the way that works for you and your business and what you want to do with it.
yes. I'm assuming that many authors come to you saying, please tell me exactly what route I should take. That I'm
Yeah,
guessing that's a question you get.
I do get that question a lot. I do get that question a lot. And we just sort of, talk through what are your goals?
Yeah.
And then, okay, is this important to you or is this more important to you? I mean, I have a quiz that I used to use as an opt-in with like 5 basic questions that would tell you, traditional or self. I should actually update that to include hybrid into the mix. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to tell once you figure out, when do the math is another phrase that I toss
right.
around all the time.
Right.
Do the math. Yes, with traditional publishing, you're getting that money up front, but are you going to earn it back and earn anything else? You're
Mm,
doing a lot of the marketing anyway.
mm,
So we take all of these factors into consideration. And more often than not, especially for business owners, I don't want to speak for all nonfiction authors, self publishing is a much smarter
mm.
financial choice.
Yeah, I know it's fantastic, isn't it, that there are so many options now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way.
So, Jodi, tell us about, well, first of all, how can authors work with you? And is there anything that you've got coming up that people can look forward to from you as well?
Well, I am practicing what I preach and updating my book, Write.Publish.Market. So the third edition is going to come out this fall, October 2025. I have spoken
Mm,
it out loud now so that
excellent.
I have to finish it. I have revised my writing schedule many a time, but I am about to actually hole myself up in an Airbnb for a few days to finish that darn manuscript, which
Wow.
yeah. So that's coming. That's the main thing that I'm working on. And the other thing is we're giving my half-day intensive package, which is sort of my signature offer, my book planning intensive. That's getting a little bit of a glow up. We've been testing some things behind the scenes. And so that's really exciting. That's my favorite way to work with people that aren't able or interested in investing in a long-term one-on-one book coaching where we kind of go through the whole process and in addition to writing feedback. But the half-day intensive, the book planning intensive, is a lot of fun. We sort of, if you feel like you just need the plan, that's where that happens. We sort of get your table of contents knocked out. We figure out what content you have, and then we come up with your schedule, your plan moving forward, and then, check in a couple check-ins down the road, but you're off and running with your
Yeah.
plan. And that's what I mean, that works for a lot of business owners. They just really
Yes.
need the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a brilliant package. And I think, yeah, for any business owners who are listening, I think that
It's
sounds
a
like
lot of
a
fun. I've done hundreds of them and I am surprised every single time when we're done by how much we get done.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jodi, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of your tips and insights. I think that was super useful. So, yeah, thank you very much.
thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun, Isabel.